There is a specific kind of uncomfortable silence that happens when someone points out a flaw in your reasoning. Not a polite pause, not a moment of reflection. This is the kind of silence where something in your chest tightens, and your first instinct is not to consider what they just said, but to find the flaw in them. Most people have been in that silence. Most people have felt that tightening. And almost nobody talks honestly about what it means. Because the hardest thing in the world is not admitting you are wrong about something outside of you. It is sitting with the possibility that the way you think might have limits you have never examined. Psychology is very clear on this. Intelligence is not just about what you know. It is about how you respond when what you know turns out to be incomplete. And sometimes, the most significant sign of low cognitive functioning is the absolute certainty that you are already thinking clearly enough. Here are 5 signs that your mind may be working against you, even as it convinces you everything is fine. Sign 1, you think you are right most of the time. Not occasionally, not just on things you know well, most of the time, on almost everything. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because this one is more uncomfortable than it looks. You avoid changing your mind. You've probably had a conversation like this. Someone presents you with evidence that contradicts something you believe. The evidence is solid. You can feel that it is solid. And instead of following it, you spend the next several minutes finding reasons to dismiss it. Not because the reasons are good, but because changing your mind feels like losing. And losing, even in a private conversation, even when nobody else is keeping score, feels unbearable. This is not intelligence. This is ego wearing the clothes of conviction. Psychology is unambiguous here. Smarter individuals update their beliefs when presented with strong evidence. Not reluctantly, not after a long defensive process. They update because they understand that a belief is not an identity. Holding on to a wrong idea just to protect your sense of self doesn't make you consistent. It makes you rigid. And rigid thinking is not a strength. It is the ceiling that stops you from growing. We're often taught that changing your mind is weakness, that admitting you were wrong makes you look foolish, that the person who holds firm is stronger than the one who reconsiders. That story is wrong, and believing it costs more than you realize. Before we go further, here's something honest. None of these signs are comfortable to recognize in yourself. They are not supposed to be. Because the real problem is this. The mind that has these patterns doesn't experience them as problems. It experiences them as clarity, confidence, and identity. That's why they're so hard to catch. So if something in the first 2 signs made you want to click away, or made you think of someone else who needs to hear this, that reaction itself is worth noticing. Because the person who immediately thinks this is about someone else is often the person it is most about. Sign 3. You oversimplify complex things. Always. Never. Obviously. It's simple. These words act like shortcuts around the hard work of thinking, and some people use them constantly, without noticing. But the world is not black and white. The situations that matter most, people, systems, history, behavior, cause and effect, are layered and complex. Psychology suggests that reducing complex issues into one-line answers reflects shallow processing, not clarity. Real intelligence doesn't force simplicity onto a complicated world. It sits with complexity long enough to understand it. The danger of oversimplification is not just being wrong, it's making decisions based on incomplete understanding, without ever realizing what was missing.
Sign 4. You rarely ask questions. Think about the last time you genuinely didn't know something. Did you ask? Or did you stay quiet, nod, and fill in the gaps yourself? Curiosity is one of the strongest indicators of intelligence. Not performative curiosity, but genuine, uncomfortable curiosity about what you don't understand. People who rarely ask questions often believe that not knowing is something to hide, so they stop asking. And when you stop asking, your thinking stops growing. Your mind begins working only with what it already has, and over time, that becomes its limit. Sign 5. You blame everything on others. Everyone faces setbacks. Sometimes external factors really are responsible. But there's a pattern where every failure is external. Every mistake belongs to someone else. Every problem is something that happened to you, not something you had any part in. Psychology links intelligence to metacognition, the ability to examine your own thinking honestly. To ask not just what went wrong, but what did I do? What did I miss? What could I have seen earlier? That kind of self-reflection is uncomfortable. Most people avoid it. But without it, the same mistakes repeat, with different people, different situations, but the same underlying patterns. And as long as you are not part of the analysis, you cannot be part of the solution. Overconfidence mistakes certainty for clarity. Rigidity mistakes stubbornness for conviction. Oversimplification mistakes shallow answers for obvious truths. Incuriosity mistakes comfort for understanding. Blame mistakes self-protection for self-awareness. None of these feel like limitations from the inside. From the inside, they feel like confidence, like knowing who you are. And that is exactly what makes them so hard to see. Psychology makes one thing clear. Real intelligence is not about appearing smart. It is about being willing to be